into the topic, like how did we come up with the idea for this topic, or
Yeah. So I think, I mean, so in the past, I would say 2-3 years, right? We worked with a couple of clients, and at some point we saw this recurring theme, I would think, right? So you had a company who is predominantly in B2B, right? So or B2C, and they basically started to develop a product, but they didn't really develop a product and then sell it to a client, but they essentially sold a project, and then they figured out, okay, we could actually make this a product. And then client by client, these companies started to develop what became a product. And after a couple of clients, usually 3, 4, 5, and then the mess starts, really, you realize that you don't really, so you're growing into a product, but you don't really have a product, right?
So you have an energetic leader sometimes, you sell a big project, and then you deliver the project and you think, oh, this is beautiful, my beautiful baby, how can I reuse that? And you bring it to other clients, and you think that you go down, like end up with a product like that, right? But actually it's one project after another delivered, right?
Yeah, and I think one thing we have to mention is that this applies usually to products that are in the cloud, that share the same source code, and that you basically onboard client by client into that product, really.
Maybe also give a definition of what is a product company versus a project company. What is the difference, like in our understanding? I think that will help everybody who's listening, right? What's the difference? How do we define that?
So maybe let's start with a project company, right? So what is a project company? So a project company, as the name says, right, delivers projects, and these projects are not connected to one another, right? So these are projects, they have like a certain timeline, and once they're delivered, they're done, right? This is also most of the times how sales approaches selling these kind of projects, because usually they are very much tailored to the need, and this is important, to the need of one customer, right? So this is not like standardized sale, but it's a very customized sale. And then in terms of delivery, what you see, you classically have project managers that do what a project manager does, right? So you manage budget, you manage resources, and you manage that you can actually get stuff done in time.
Right? Okay, so that's the project setup, right? So what is different in the product setup?
So in product, this gets kind of turned around, really. Because what you do in a product company is that you essentially have this product vision, and you try to develop into that product vision. And you do so by basically defining a roadmap, identifying things that basically gets you closer to that product vision, and that you, in best case, measure with certain KPIs. And the way that you do that is that you don't do it for one customer only, but you basically have all the customers, or like a big amount of the customers that are actually on your platform. And if you look at sales, because this becomes important also later when we talk about the problems in sales, this is mostly standardized, right? So there's the product, and you sell that product. And what you want to do is you only want to make sure that the things that the customer needs, in big quotations on top, is actually configurable. And by configurable, I mean really not, it doesn't need implementation by developers, but you can configure that thing.
Okay.
Right. And when you look like a little bit into the structure, how like a product company works. So a product company, I mean, this is now a no-brainer, right? They work with product managers and not project managers.
Oh, he's good.
Oh, he's good. He's good. Wow. Value delivered. So the product manager, what a product manager focuses on is actually developing that roadmap. And basically making sure that they work into that company vision, right? Or the product vision. And also with that, they have more than one customer in mind, while the project manager is really focused on getting like this one project for this one customer through the door.
All right, so you said we had a couple of companies transitioning from the project setup to the product setup. Let's give the viewers a little bit on, emphasis, like which company types did we have there? And I think specifically B2C, B2B, can you say something about that?
Yeah, so technically, I said it earlier, but so just to put an emphasis on that. So the companies that usually have that problem have two Bs in their business model. So you either have a B2B or a B2B2C model, because to be honest, like projects are kind of by the definition B2B. So in the B2C space, you don't see it that often.
Okay. So we require a B somewhere in the business
two Bs,
model.
I would say. You require two Bs. So B2C also has one B, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
Okay.
Now I got it.
Now I got it. So you need the two Bs.
Took me some time to be honest, And beside that, any limitation? I mean, obviously we work more with software companies, right? But it doesn't exclude totally the hardware companies, right?
So to be honest, I haven't seen it in a hardware company. Would be super interested if someone is listening today from a hardware company. So feel free to also join the Q&A
and put it in
the comments, because this is that would be interesting to see if hardware companies have the same problem. But so when we look at the clients that we work with that had these problems, or like part of these problems, there were software companies. Their software was deployed in the buzzword in the cloud. So essentially one code base for all customers.
Yeah, but like also some companies had a hardware component, right?
Yeah.
IoT devices or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So requires some sort of software in their business model. All right. So now we had like the clarification, like what is the difference? How do we see the difference? We had a clarification which company types we had contact. Now, how does it feel if you're in that process, or how do you identify that you're in this process of emerging, transitioning from project to the product company?
Yeah. So I will quote our participant from earlier today. So it's pain. It's a pain. Yeah. And I mean, that's a bit vague, right? So, but what's the pain? So I think one of the pains that you feel when you are kind of in that setup is that you feel that there's no common roadmap within the company, right? So you're trying to develop this product, but you really do it like project by project. So even if there is a roadmap, it looks more like 5 project plans kind of put together, and they always have a client focus, right? And because you have usually these different project managers basically working directly with the development teams, they are essentially prioritizing the work of the development team. So not a product manager or the team itself is kind of prioritizing the work, but they are doing it based on the client needs. So there's no filter whatsoever. If the client says A, it will be pushed directly into the development. And that also means that you kind of start losing track of things, and that you are missing an overview. And when you look from a tech and maybe there's already a product owner perspective, it feels like you are kind of steered by the client without actually having control over your roadmap, right? And that also reflects when you look at sales, right? So sales is essentially driving the priorities. So if they sell a project, they are basically deciding what the company is going to build.
Okay, well, what's wrong with that? If like customer is king, right?
Yeah, I mean it's good if you talk to the customer, but the issue is that you are selling it for one customer specifically, and that you are not asking yourself the question, all right, so we are selling this now, we need to build something on top of it. Can we reuse that for like the 20, 50, 200 other clients that we have, right? And that really usually leaves the tech department like let's say you have one client in the beginning, that's completely fine, right? But you add, let's say you add 10 exceptions for each client into the code, right? Then with 10 clients, you have 100 exceptions. And with every feature that you deploy to these 10 clients, you need to make sure that the 100 exceptions that you have worked into your code work. And that usually leads to instability. That leads to like super weird side effects within the product. And also that leads to a state where the development team cannot really promise to deliver anything anymore, because like as soon as they're kind of drilling a hole in the wall, the whole thing might really collapse, right? So it's a very unstable scenario that you really want to get out of very quickly.
So no overview, no clear roadmap. You mentioned. What else? Like, what other signs do we have? Did we experience in the past where you identify that you're actually in this project to product trap or transition, which you just described?
I mean, it's so there's fairly often like this conflict between sales and like the tech / if there already is a product department, the product department, because sales usually says you are not delivering, and product or tech says, yeah, but you are not really talking to us before you sell something, right? And you have this disconnect that leads to like super bad expectation management.
And like if you think about it, like it's at the very beginning, you start selling a project and it's actually, a big success, right? And you add another project and you just keep going on, and you think if you just repeat what you've done over and over, you will end up being successful. But that actually, leads, as you described, to huge complexity in the development department, and then to the conflicts and to these signs, right?
Yeah. That's exactly the issue, because for sales it feels like a huge win. For tech it feels like oh my god, this is horrible. And then when tech is actually doing something to stabilize the product, this feels like a huge win for tech, and sales is like, oh, holy moly, why are you not delivering this faster? Because we need to clean up, right? So we delivered so fast that we need to clean up now.
All right, now we have the mess, right?
Now we have the mess,
Well done. We're kind of successful. We grew the last years, but it feels shitty anyway, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, don't get me wrong. When you get that problem, you are usually already at like a point in time where you are already successful with what you do, right? So you did something right in the past. So I want to stress that. It's not that you completely screwed up in the past, but you actually did a lot of things right when you kind of managed to get to that point, because you already sold, right? You sold projects. You basically built a product based on these projects, and this is in itself a success, because the other way around would be I build a perfect product and I don't find any customers for it. So right, so you grew with the market somehow.
So what do you tell the person who just approached you this afternoon? Like, okay, we just talked about signs and like which companies, but is there anything we can do about it, or what should we do about it? What should we focus on, right?
I think that is the right question. Where should we focus on, right? And obviously we cannot solve the issues of everyone in this call today, right? So
well, I expected that actually.
Bad expectation management. No, but all right, let's focus maybe on the top 5 things that you need to focus on, and maybe also kind of hint already how you could go about, right? So number 1 for me, and I mentioned that earlier, is the roadmap. So as long as your roadmap looks like a stitched project plan, it's not a roadmap. And the roadmap is basically the key to becoming a successful product company, because the roadmap is the transparency instrument that the product organization has in order to communicate what are they going to build next. And the important bit here is that the roadmap needs to be filled by product and not by sales priorities. This is like super important. So basically we want to make sure that sales is one input channel of how we get kind of feedback from the market, feedback from the customer should not be our only channel, but this could be one channel. And then we should actually start building a roadmap where we actually like focus on things that makes the product better for 80-90% of our customers, and not for like the 5% that sales just sold the project to.
So you argue that you can find, or if you're in a company which is transitioning from project to product and is not yet there, you can see that on the roadmap, because the roadmap is not filled from product, and it feels more like a stitched project plan, right?
Or you don't have a roadmap at all. I mean, then you have maybe like 5 projects running, and maybe the 5 projects all access 3 or 4 development teams, and like 3 or 4 development teams are working in 4 different projects. And then you have a project plan or a milestone plan for that particular client. So you can definitely see it by looking at the roadmap, because either there is none, or there is like the stitch project plan, or there is a project plan, or there is a roadmap that is just filled up with things sales wants to sell, right?
That will be really interesting, like who can really feel this pain. We have here a laptop and we see the comments. I don't read them at the moment, but if you thumb up or something like that, it would be really interesting to see whether people can really feel that this is that they have this issue in the organization. So if you fix that, you will be able to transition, right?
I mean, this is one part. That's one part. Yeah.
What else?
Using product management as a filter. So roadmap is the one part, but the other thing is that product management needs to be the filter. What actually makes it into
some thumbs up flying.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, so needs to be the filter of what makes it into the roadmap, and also what requirements make it into the teams. Because what you usually see in these organizations is that sales or like the project managers are directly talking to the tech teams. Sometimes the tech teams have a product owner, but the product owners are usually not enabled to be that filter, right? So they're not like product managers in that sense. And you need to make sure that you set a filter in place, and also a filter that everybody in the company accepts. And if that filter is in place and people still try to get past it, right, getting their own things like their U-boats into the product, then this needs to be escalated again. Like typically that would be like a head of product that would then say, why are you approaching like the tech team, or like the CTO, and say, why are you approaching the tech team? Talk to product management about it, right? So this is definitely one thing. And I mean, how you do that, very different from company to company. Some companies set up basically ticketing systems. Some companies use like the head of product as an initial filter. Some companies basically split it up. Their product managers are essentially their own filter for their own part of the product. So this is very different from case to case. But like the filter in itself needs to be in place. And it needs to be enforced. And when I say filter, it doesn't mean, because there's like this tendency in product management that we say, oh, we need to say no a lot. So this is not about saying no a lot, but this is about saying yes to the right things. And in order to get there, you obviously need to say no to a couple of things, but better you say no because.
And you know, like if you think about it, it's obvious that a salesperson, you know, is super proud to sell something, right? And obviously, salesperson are not really the filter at the very beginning of the chain, right? Because you know, product thinks more about, you know, different scenarios, other customers, market segments, and stuff like that, right? So that's just not the knowledge which you typically have in the salesperson. I mean, of course. You know, sometimes it's different. What else?
So I think there's 2 things, and these are connected, right? So one is sales, and the other one is sales enablement. So maybe what shall we start with?
Let's first start with sales.
Okay. So with sales, I mean, what's the issue here, right? So usually in sales, if you go out and you basically sell that product, and you basically take, let's say, features from the customer. So you basically just distill a list and you say, all right, this is what the customer needs, but what you actually need to do, you need to turn it around. So you basically need to sell what your product is actually capable of. And then if there is like an issue with the customer, talk about product management about it. So you essentially need to flip that power and responsibility model around, because if you have basically project companies, which are fairly often sales led, then the power is with sales and the responsibility is with sales. So if you flip that around, that means the power is with product management, but also the responsibility, right? And when I say responsibility, that brings me to the next bit. It's also the responsibility of product management to make sure that we properly enable sales to sell the right thing.
So that's the end sales enablement part.
This is the sales enablement part. Yeah. And this is how you I mean, there's different ways of doing it. Like, but one thing that actually helps, and it sounds really stupid, but it's fairly often this completely missing, like kind of a high-level documentation what the product is actually capable of doing, right? So this doesn't even have to be written. This could be like demo setups that you do, right? That you can basically educate sales on, right? That can be basically regular reviews that you can have sales on. This could be regular internal updates that you do and say, all right, so now in module A, we have like this extra thing, right? So that you really make sure that you enable sales to sell the right thing, because otherwise you get into that situation that we also see sometimes. It's like sales is just sitting there as like, tell us what to sell. And then product is sitting there as like, tell us what you want to sell. And this is like, I mean, this is like super, this is like going in circles, right?
Yeah. So the project company sales goes to the customer, collects the features they need, right? And they push it through the organization to development, and they deliver the product, right?
Yeah.
So power is on the sales side, and information flows from the sales department towards the organization to the development.
Yeah.
Product company, it's flipped around. We have the product management, which this is defining what they build, right? And they want to bring it to the market, but therefore it's required to have information flowing the other way around, to the sales department to tell them what to sell, and also give an, out view, like a view in the future, what's been, which features are coming up and stuff like that, right? Okay.
Maybe not with like strict deadlines, because that's, I mean, we're still in software development. That's not how it works, right? But so at least like, this is like a short-term goal, this is a mid-term goal, this is a long-term goal. And also, I mean, it's not only that you flip it around. I mean, obviously you also want the information that comes from sales, right? Because they are usually the first line to the customer, at least with B2B. So they usually have like a good feeling for the market, right? So you obviously want to use that. And it's also not exactly that you turn it around, but it's kind of all centered around product. While in sales-led, it's basically sales, project management, bam, into development. And now you basically create the space where product is basically going towards sales and say, this is what you can sell. Tell us what the market needs. And then you have basically the teams that are actively pulling what they want to build. So this is also turned around, right? So it's not like a push towards development, but it's a pull from the development teams and say, all right, we know our module best. Let's see that we pull the right things now.
And obviously that's hard, because it's like every company is more or less like have a system to find decisions, right?
Yeah.
And if you shift these decision making processes, you need to have a common view on what you want to change and stuff like that, and then it gets complicated, right? A change project, more or less.
Yeah, it and especially gets complicated if sales is incentivized in the wrong way.
Okay.
Right. So you really need to look at like the organization as a whole and not only the product department, because from a product department, I mean, you can only change so much, right? So you also have to look at the sales organization. You have to look at like the tech organization. So there's all these kind of things that you need to look at.
So we had roadmap,
we
had filter, we had sales role and we had sales enablement.
Yeah.
What is the fifth?
I mean, that is the basic, essentially. So, I mean, you need to build a product organization.
Okay.
So, I mean, if it sounds, sorry, I make it sound like so easy. It's not obviously not easy to change that. But if you come from a world that you have project managers, then you need to think about how can we actually structure our efforts into like a proper product organization. Especially if I want to grow, I want to make sure that I don't have basically the centralized project structure, but I'd rather have like a decentralized product team set up that you empower in order to enable the right things for the customer. Because otherwise, this whole process of like turning it around doesn't make sense if at the end of the day you don't have product managers that actually are aware what the market needs. Also, maybe in inspiring with sales, right? And that are able to deliver things on their own. So this is definitely like a key component. And also that, I mean, this is not like a one size fits all thing, right? That you just do, all right, let's be a product organization from now on. Here's your blueprint, just do, I don't know, Spotify, squad model and tribes and guilds and be done with it, right? So that's not how it works, right? You gotta obviously look at how the culture works within the organization, and there's definitely like a couple of things that work better than others, and some things that have proven themselves to work. But these setups are very different from company to company. The important bit is really like the power shift, and that's what you get with having a roadmap that's defined by product, that you have product as the filter, that you make sales aware that they are just not going out there selling things that product is not delivering, right? And this is also maybe just like one comment. You just need to make sure that you put the pain where it's created, right? So if sales goes out there, sells something without talking to product first and is not really enabled properly, and they say, we sold that, then you just say, that's your problem. We are not going to deliver that. I mean, and then
for developers yourself, right?
I mean, no, but it's so, I mean, obviously this also needs like the willingness of the management in order to change that. I'm just saying it will not work if you don't put the pain where it's created, and in this case it's then created within sales.
So to just illustrate the organizational change, like I had one company, they really, wrote down the role descriptions, what does a product manager do and stuff like that. And of course it gets messy because you still have, the legacy organization and the project's running, right? While you want to transition, right? And then it's like, okay, so you have a couple of projects still running, but you want to build up the product. So who gets the resources then? And that's a messy situation. And you really need like top-down, bottom-up commitment to really transition to the product, right?
Yeah, that's super important that you mentioned that. I mean, obviously that's actually what I meant by saying you can only change so much from a product management perspective. I mean, this is obviously the bottom-up change, right? So the teams need to get into that mindset that we are now delivering a product, but you obviously also need like that top-down change and also the buy-in from management. Because okay, let's look at sales, right? Your sales department is hugely successful by like selling all these projects, right? So when I look at this from a pure cash flow perspective, I obviously don't want to change that in the short term. In the long term, I will not be able to deliver that because obviously, I mean, this product will simply explode at some point, right? But this is also a perspective that I can consciously decide and say, you know what? We only have to keep doing this for another 2 or 3 years. We just hire more people if it's that profitable. So I'm just saying this is like a case-by-case decision, and this obviously needs the management buy-in.
So you need management buy-in. You need lots of education of the working level, right? And you need unified picture of the company, of its new operating system, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so this is actually half an hour. So what I would do now is I would actually post our link of the Zoom call into the chat. And then
we'll have some people joining if they have question, and we have a discussion. And I just, scrolled a little bit through the questions. Yes, we did record that. It is available later on LinkedIn as well. It's the same link as the event, so it will be there. Exactly. Yeah, just I think it has a little bit time delay.
Maybe we go through a couple of questions that were posted into the chat.
Yeah. Let's see, what do we have there? SpaceX, Tesla are product companies building hardware. Yeah, I think no doubt there is product companies with hardware. It was just a question whether we see like from the project to the product companies, like this transition, whether this occurs in hardware as well, right? Just to clarify that one.
But yeah, that's good insight, Felix. Like Tesla and SpaceX, it's true. Yeah, they're building a product.
Do you have an example how you could standardize your consulting service to deliver to multiple clients?
Okay,
well, that's obviously,
yeah. Okay. So I mean, this is technically not the topic of this talk, but I mean, we are doing that through the product masterclass essentially. Yeah. So we productize the service that we can replicate. So yeah, if you are interested in that, check out product-masterclass.com. You can also put that in the chat. So yeah, we essentially did that. Yeah.
Where it's that I think there is a huge thing going on.
Oh my God, we have 4 people in the waiting room. Shall we?
Yeah,
shall we let people in?
Yeah.
All right.
How do you train product owners? Of course, we do that with product masterclass, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
Fabian Meyer, what are the key roles you should have in a company?
Oh my God, we have 4 people in the Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. So we actually have to do a short mic check.
Can
anyone say something that has already joined
obviously
with audio?
What are the key roles?
Martin is not joining with audio. Okay, so I can't. Oh, wait. I think we were muted. All right. Martin, maybe you can try again. No, you just want to join? Okay. All right, so we have a couple of people in Q&A now, in our Q&A room. Feel free to join. I think Jasper has had a question also in the chat. So maybe if you want, you can ask that again for the round, because I thought that was actually quite interesting.
I can try to. I hope my audio works.
Yes, it works fine.
So transitioning from a project business model to a product business model is a big thing, I think. And as a big change, it requires change management, active, adequate, good change management. What is your experience with the acceptance of this authority change, the change in the power dynamics from sales and projects driving the roadmap to product management, setting the roadmap, of course, actively working with sales as stakeholders, but how do the people in sales and projects accept this power shift, and how can change management moderate this power shift to raise the acceptance?
Yeah, that's a good one. Do you wanna answer the sales side?
Well, I think there is one really key thing which you need to have that, to be able to do that. And that is buy-in from your top level management. And it needs to come from top to down. And it needs to be clear that the whole company is shifting towards this product setup. You cannot do that from bottom up. You need the education bottom up as well, like what is happening, how will you act as a company afterwards, after the transition, how is the new structure working and stuff like that. But you need a clear commitment from top down that you actually want to do that, because sometimes that's not so super clear that you actually want to do that or need to do that, right?
I mean, I can think of 3 things. So when I look at past cases, so one thing was sales was actually completely devastated, that they didn't really know what to sell, and they always got in conflict with product about that. So basically they were kind of like, oh, let's excuse my language, let's fudge it, right? Let's just do whatever they tell us, right? That's obviously not like a great boat to be in, but the acceptance can also come from pain, right? And when we talk about like sales that is really not willing to do so, right? So either one thing is you can change, and this has also has to come top down, that you change the way you incentivize sales. And then I think it's like it always is, either people think that it makes sense. We also had that bit, right? That we were talking to sales and said, it makes perfect sense. I completely see that we need to go there, because the way it's currently working is not working for us. And we are just like sitting there in projects. We cannot do proper expectation management to our clients. We definitely have to change something, right? And yeah, there's like different extremes. But what you really need to do, and what we are usually doing, we do in these kind of change setup, a so-called management track, where we really get sales management, so top-level sales management, C-level, plus product and tech management in there. And then what you really want to do is want to foster a continuous dialogue between the parties, because this is most of the times the problem, right? That people don't find the time. It sounds really stupid, but the main problem is that people don't find the time in their daily operations to actually properly listen to each other and talk to each other. And then I feel you can actually work this out.
All right, was that a good answer for you? Let's see.
Yes.
Okay. What else? Who has a question?
I would have one that goes directly in the same direction.
Yeah.
I'm, by the way, the one who asked if I can have all my problems solved within this half an hour.
No, I was laughing so hard when you joined the call. I was like, yes, Michaela's there. So now we can ask, did we solve all the pain of the past years? I was so pressured today.
Yeah. If you would have managed that, I would have quit my job tomorrow, to be honest. If you can solve my problems within half an hour, I would doubt about myself. But you're actually bringing my pressure points, my pain points right to the point. And I think right now my company is on a good track with a lot of things that you're saying, especially when it comes to the change organization. This is really a pain point, because, you know, the companies are really maybe dependent on certain big projects. And then, of course, it's hard to decide suddenly, okay, we do all the invest suddenly to something that maybe doesn't pay up. We don't know in the end. And I have a little bit of doubt lately that if all the people that are involved in the normal project organization are the right people that should be there in the product, because you need other skills, you need other properties, other personalities. What's your experience on that?
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's a big one. I mean, God, I don't want to say it. It depends. It's like, sorry. It's like, okay, it really depends on the people though, right? So we just recently had a client, great company culture, really great company culture. And they were basically focused on and committed on changing something. And project and product is really what it mainly is a different mindset, right? And if you can definitely make a product manager, you can definitely get like a project manager to be a product manager at some point. But the person also needs to be willing to accept that it's just a completely different role. It's a bit like when you switch from like any other role that you have within building a digital product, like a developer or UX person or whatever, into product. This is also a very different role, and it requires you acting differently. And I mean, what can I say? I mean, I think it can be done. It it definitely, so I mean, the way we do it is usually in our formats, like the product masterclass, that we really get like also project managers in there, and we basically like work with them for 8 weeks, right? So, and that way we are making sure that we are always basically triggering certain thoughts that go into the right direction of getting into a product mindset. And yeah,
I think the basic question is, can you change the behavior and the thinker of individuals, right? Yeah. And if you think about a product or a culture in a company anyways, right, it's just made up of the behavior of the individuals, right? So if you want to change your culture, if you want to change from project to product, you really need to think about, how do I change my individuals, right? And well, before we did the product masterclass, or before I worked with you on the product masterclass, I did entrepreneurship programs, and we had like a 12 weeks program. And I was really amazed how we were able to change the mindset of the people during the course of the 12 weeks, right? Because we always gave them input, and then we observed how they behaved, and then we corrected them and told them, no, this is actually not how you do it. Try it this way, right? And after 12 weeks continuous input, we really got out people who changed their mindset and that changed their careers. One went to Israel in an innovation hub. The other one founded a new department within the company. One, started AI projects. And, like, it's really about, can I change individuals? And of course, and it also depends like how old your company is, how much history you have. Like if you have a company which was doing 15 years projects, right? It's much harder to change the structures, whereas a company which is a startup, everything is fluent, like you have young people who are not, doing 15 years the same thing. It's obviously easier. Is both possible? Yes, of course. The one is harder than the other.
Just takes more time.
It takes more time, more dedication.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand. As everything in IT organization, it depends. But do you have like one or two very good arguments that is against when someone says, but the customer wants to have it that way?
Which customer wants to have it that way? So I mean, so the issue like that you see a lot is that people, like especially if you're in a product environment and you come from this kind of project setup, that people start arguing on behalf of one customer. But what we really want to do is, all right, this one customer has the problem. Show me 10 other customers that have the same problem. And this is exactly the switch. And this is also what we said when we talked about the filter. This is an essential part of the filter, right? So that if someone basically talks to you and say, all right, we have like you need to solve this because we have this customer that has the problem, then the answer should always be, all right, so how many? I mean, is it just one? Is it 20? Is it 80% of our customer base? But we don't want to try to solve, like in a product, we don't want to try to solve like a problem of one single customer. That doesn't work. I mean,
that is actually really the shift, and it's counterintuitive, because typically you say, okay, go to the customer, talk to the customer, and to understand them throughoutly, right? So you have that one customer who wants something. But the problem with, the project setup is if you have like, as he said, like you have like 10 or 15 customers and you go really, really deep down and do like their special processes, that doesn't make a good product, right? Mm. So that's really the problem. So you should ask your question, is that functionality, is that thing that we solve for that one customer, is that really something which should go in our core product or not? And that's hard. It's a hard thing, yeah. But like you can, yeah. But you
Gretchenfrage.
Gretchenfrage, yeah. But you can really do that, right? So you can really, we suggest sometimes, go out to other customers, see whether you can, get pre-sales from other customers, show the functionality which you want to develop, and then see whether you can get buy-in from others. right? Sometimes it's not a sale, sometimes it's just, you know, something more lightweight, but somehow commitment. Don't ask just for opinion, just see whether you can get something from the customer for your new feature, yeah, to see whether it's just, you know, suitable for one customer or it's really suitable for more customers. But basically, that's, you know, like a salesman goes out and says like, okay, the customer wants that, please build it. Here we have the strength that in the sales department, yeah. The product department thinks, okay, is this something which I can market on the market, right? Is this functionality something worth solving, right? It goes the other direction. That's the shift of the power.
Thanks for your answers.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for joining, Michaela. Jasper, before we take your questions, do you have also 3 other participants in the room? Do you folks have any questions?
Sure. Actually, when you're talking about this transition from project management towards product management, what would you say about the set of KPIs that you look at an organization level? And then how would those KPIs change in that transition? And how do you also work towards changing the ownership of those KPIs from a sales to a product level?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. All right, I'm gonna phrase that the other way around. So what kind of KPIs do you usually have in a project company? So what are these KPIs based on usually?
Looking at, I mean, I'm not talking about my organization. I just want to give a generic because I don't want to kind of, you know, disclose internal stuff. So generally you have a revenue per account, you have retention numbers, you do, you know, demo numbers, and then you have your, you know, standard conversion funnel, versus when you are on a product side, you have your acquisition, activation, retention, and so on. So
yeah. And I think, I mean, you are already arguing from like a product KPI perspective, really, because if we, and that's good. I mean, this pretty much answers the question. Thanks for answering it. Because I mean, if you look at it like a typical project company, right? So what is the KPI? I mean, it's sales led. The KPIs is how much can I close? How many projects can I close? How much revenue can I bring in? And can I deliver that on time? But because, I mean, there's one thing that you got to think about. If it's like a project company, you definitely don't do proper product management. So essentially what you do is you put the product management perspective on the side of the customer, really, because they tell you what to build. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing a good job at it. But when you look, for instance, into like the agency worlds, what they usually say is the customer is the product owner or the product manager. And that's what you have a lot in project companies as well, because the customer says, all right, I need A, B, C, D, E. And sales says, right, okay, let's get that estimated. All right, we sell it. And then it's usually also a different business model because you sell on a time and material basis usually, right? So I would say like the way looking at things is completely different, because the KPIs that you might have are actually only sales-based KPIs. So looking down a sales funnel, how many people do I need to contact? How many leads do I need to have? How much percent, what kind of percentage can I close here, right? So, I mean, this is also something that you might have later in the product setup, but you typically, so what I most of the times don't see in these project companies is that they have actually KPIs on a product level that you just described. Because I think this is the major difference. They usually don't have any KPIs on a product level because they don't need them, because product management is not responsible for the product and needs to measure their success against anything. I think that is really the major difference, that you only have sales KPIs in a project company.
All right, and I'll have here a question which you will really like, Sebastian. Irene Lorenz asks, which roles would you see the project managers in a product setup? Scrum Masters, question mark. So what is a project manager in a product setup? Is it a Scrum Master?
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So what do you do with them?
So, I mean, we've seen project managers shifting to product management positions. I mean, it's a different role, right? It's definitely a different set of skills. But yeah, you can do that. I mean, it's really, so you got to acknowledge it's a different role. There is no project management in a product company. What you can do, so a couple of suggestions. I mean, they can obviously switch over to product management. They can also be Scrum Masters. I mean, feel free to do so. But what makes the most sense in my perspective, so we are usually talking, because we are B2B, right? We are talking about usually quite complex products. So at some point, you need some kind of rollout management or account management. And if you think about that, so if you drive your product towards, you can roll it out in a standardized way, then the standardized rollout requires a project plan again, because then we are talking about a waterfall project, meaning we need to configure the product so that we can roll it out to the customer. So think a bit of it like, I don't know, you wanna roll out the Salesforce Sales Cloud in your organization, right? So you have this product, but you usually also have like a project running to configure it in the way you need it and then roll it out into your company. So I mean, could you potentially use project managers if they really want to keep doing project work and use them there, right? All right, wait, Jasper, I'm sorry. So the hand has been raised for so long. Then let's take your question.
Don't worry, I have plenty of time, I guess. I don't know when you guys want to go to bed, but I have plenty of time.
As long as it takes.
Yeah. First thing, I wanted to yell objection when you said there's no room for project managers in a product company, but you kind of saved it already. What I think is that inside products there can still be projects. Like the product is the envelope, right? The container, and inside the product you can have singular projects to bring your product forward, and you can utilize project management skills in there. But especially in B2B industries, a product isn't necessarily plug and play. You know, there's always integration involved with that, and if you ship it to the customer probably needs to start a project around the product, and project management capacity will probably still be needed. My original comment was towards your answer to Michaela and also to Shushant. I think you mentioned something that is very important. You have to build up, when transitioning from project business to product business, you have to build up the skill in the organization to listen to the customer and to not do what they want, but what they need. And I think that sounds a bit cheesy, but it really boils down to this. You have to understand what do multiple customers need. And that skill is usually lacking in organizations that do project business. What is your experience? Can this easily be, nurtured, build up the skill internally, or do you need external hires to bring this into the culture?
Before you answer that, Thomas, I want to say thank you, Jasper, for bringing up the project. So, I mean, yeah, you're completely right. I was like super harsh there. You don't need them. That's actually not true. So project management is like, especially in organizations that are a little bigger, is definitely also like an important role to not only bring bring product like within product, but also to bring like different departments together. So yeah, I didn't want to bash project management there, right? But it's just within the product teams itself, the role is not really there. But you're completely right. We need, so especially in the B2B setup, what you just mentioned, especially rollout, you need it, and it like a company can hugely benefit from having that skill in-house, especially if you want to coordinate certain things around departments. So I'm not saying that the skill is, so what I'm not saying is that project management is not a valid skill and that it is absolutely not needed when transitioning to the product company. But what I'm saying is a project manager is not part of an agile team.
Yeah. And the second question, whether you can do that in-house or external. You can do that in-house, yeah, but obviously with Product Masterclass, we specialized in this task, you know, like we really put a lot of thought in there, how we bring the right mindset, the product mindset to people. And we educate product manager, we educate people who start in this field, who are working in this thing. And of course, you can build a better Product Masterclass than we can do. But, you know, like I really think we did a lot of thoughts in there, and sometimes it makes sense to do it from outside. But, you know, like, of course, you can do a lot of stuff to educate your people as well, right?
I think the main issue is usually when you are kind of stuck in this project mindset, it's really hard to change that from within, because it's not like you couldn't, but it's just that you are so used to it that you stop seeing things really, right? And this is also, I mean, this is one of the most important things, and this is like usually Thomas's job. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, we have this customer. It's like, which customer? So he said he needs this. Ah, okay, interesting. So how did you ask him? Did you just ask him, what do you want? And then obviously, I mean, this is what you hinted at, right? So the customer is not the owner of the solution. The customer is the owner of the problem. And your job as a product manager is obviously to build like a good solution, because this is what your job is. And that's why obviously asking for a customer for a solution. And I mean, this is what not all project companies, right? So again, there's like companies that do projects that are very good at boiling down the actual problem that they're solving in the project. But there's a general tendency that the customer is just writing down, we need this, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then you say, all right, that takes us 3 months. And then we do A, B, C, D, E, F, G without asking for why do you actually need that?
All right, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you all here. It was a great session. If you're interested in get more education around product management, check out the Product Masterclass. We have the next batch starting in September, late September, if you're interested in that. And if you're feeling you are a company transitioning from project to product, talk to us. It's really interesting. We want to know, like, is the situation as we described it today? We want to learn more about the situation, get in contact, and we can just, you know, have a casual exchange about, you know, like how you experience that, what problem you run into and stuff like that, right?
I'm especially interested if you have huge problems with sales. That's my thing. So I love this. So if you have like a huge problem with sales, please send me a PM on LinkedIn, because I would be super interested in that topic, really. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Thank you for joining, and see you next time.
Thank you very much. And Jasper, give me a PM. I will send you a link with a calendar. You can book a slot, because I would be like super interested how huge the problems with sales are. Yeah. Anyways, thanks for joining. I know it was a lovely evening outside.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Now I just need to figure out how we close the live stream.